Thank you, Dr. Tim. I hope you have a good weekend.
Thanks. Same to you. Blessings.
Thanks. So welcome, everybody, to the second hour of MindShifters Radio, and today is Friday, and it's July the 14th, 2023, and our call-in number is 563-999-3581, and press 1. That puts you in the queue for your show. And we'll give Michael a moment to dial in. Just refreshed my computer to see what's going on. There's a big message that had been across the top that said private only, but it's letting me in this time. So hopefully we'll see if the chat room will work. And I don't have the recording yet for yesterday's Hear My Voice Book Club. They went over Chapter 6, and so hopefully by the end of today anyway, I'll have that on the website where you can listen to that if you weren't there to participate. Tomorrow
I just wrote her and I haven't heard back from her yet, sweetie.
Oh, okay. And tomorrow is MindShifters and StillPoint Breathing, and I believe that we have a couple of new people that are going to join us in that. And so we should have, it's still a small group, but we're looking forward to having a good processing for the next 2 days. That's on the third Saturday and the third Saturday and then the following Sunday of each month we do MindShifters and StillPoint Breathing. And that's been an awesome process. So if you're interested in participating in that.
Yeah, third Saturday and Sunday. Not the Saturday and then the following Sunday.
The way that, well, except that sometimes the way the day falls in the month, the third Saturday should actually be like the fourth Sunday, depending on where the day falls. But anyway.
That's why I'm saying we do the third Saturday and then the Sunday that goes with that Saturday.
Yes.
Somebody might interpret it as the following Sunday. So.
Oh, okay. All righty. So if you'd like to be part of that group, then drop me a line at Jeanie, Jeanie, @yagain.org, and let me know, and we'll get you registered. Had a couple more people interested in perhaps participating in the codependence self-study intensive, and that group is really growing. So we're thankful for that too, and seeing a lot of changes, a lot of the testimonials that are coming back from that is awesome. So anyway, I think that's all the announcements that I have. We have, I was just looking, next Thursday you'll be doing Course in Miracles with the book club, and that's on July the 20th.
Yeah, we're going to do the lesson, What is the World, next Thursday.
Okay, awesome.
One we refer to a lot. One of my favorites, one of the most important, one of the most powerful lessons from the Course, and I think one of the most misunderstood. So that's what we're going to be doing next Thursday at 3:30 in the afternoon Eastern Time, 8:30 in London, England. So if you want to join us, look for the Zoom link under events on yagain.org. And Jeanie's probably already put the link in the notes for today, so it's probably there too. Would that be correct, sweetie?
I haven't yet, but I will.
Oh, okay. Cool. Awesome. Well, do we have anybody in the phone queue with a hand up at this moment, or anybody in the chat room with a question, or any questions from the app?
No, on all three areas.
I thought it was awesome, the story that Terry Bowling shared with us yesterday, where he was in a bank and got all upset and went over and sat down and put himself in timeout and pulled out the app on his phone and did a couple of worksheets. And by the time he got the worksheet done, his problem was solved externally. One of those things people call miracles. So it's pretty cool. Pretty sweet.
We do have a hand just went up.
Oh, great. Let's say hello.
I believe it's Miss Susan, 610. You're on the air.
It is. Hello,
Welcome,
everybody.
young lady.
Thanks.
How do you be?
Well, I told pretty well. I have my left wrist is. I've got to probably have some surgery on it because even the ability I have to use it is weakening. It turns out that when you have a plate put in a wrist, the tendons often start failing sometime later. It's been about 6 years. One of them has snapped, and I told you about that some weeks ago. I've been wearing a little brace that I get on it, just a cloth thing, but I can feel the weakness in it, and when I move a certain way, I can feel the other tendons kind of rubbing up or snapping against the metal plate. And if they go, I really am in trouble. I'd love to maybe go for a cure, maybe, or at least have the plate out and have the other tendons okay. So that's neither here nor there. That's I'm pretty peaceful about all that. I'm able to play enough piano to work on pieces I'm writing, and that's all that's been necessary so far. But I have a...
Great. Well, we'll hold the space. The surgeon is on track.
Thanks.
If the right one is there with the right skills and right mind to do the best possible so you get the highest level of function possible.
Wouldn't that be nice? Yeah.
Yeah. 100% recovery, all of the space for.
Thanks.
Good.
You know, that wake-up sheet I did with you or Tim, I forget who I did it with, but I guess it was both of you. I was working for a couple of days, and, I remember telling you about the refugee center, and you said, wow, there's energy there, meaning you're in a healing crisis and not sick, and you got all this good blood back, and everything looked good, so I still feel fine. I've got my energy back, but there have been other fruits. What you say about when you get another level of vitality, I had a conversation with Tim Bingham a week or so ago, and I said, Tim, you know, you've grown up in a household where you had people living with you, a governess, a cook. He had a big house. His mother's parents lived on an estate in Westchester, New York. There was a whole different culture. It was perfectly normal to have people living with you. One was an immigrant from Russia who was a governess for the kids, and one was a black woman from the South who was a cook who functioned as a real mother to the children, because Tim's mother was a perfectly fine mother, but she also had a career and was freed up to do a lot of writing during that time. So she had a lot of help. And I thought, well, you know, I've been fussing with our person who lives with us, and maybe I've got the wrong mindset. So I said, Tim, I'm going to pretend that I'm used to this. I'm used to having our man. And I thought, well, if we actually make a deal with him that's more or less spoken, it's been happening anyway, let's change the setup. Let's say, all right, you're no longer a homeless person who's living in our basement and trying as best he can to not be noticed by anybody. I said, I want to have you be more of a member of the family. That doesn't mean we have to socialize. We're all introverts. And he said, yeah, I'm afraid I'm not up for much of that. But I said, if you really become the help that you're already becoming, we may not have to leave this place to go to an old people's home. And Tim Bingham's been dragging his feet about that. So Michael has taken on more jobs, and there's been a lot to do around here. And suddenly all the fussing I was about being angry at him for not doing much. I feel more powerful and entitled or empowered or whatever to say things like, I just did a wash and I have no time. Can you hang it? He'll say yes. He always says yes. I say, the front lawns, the neighbor has a power mower, and he just comes from his lawn and just shoots across ours and does ours before we do it. We have a little hand mower, and I've always done it myself. So we don't have that big of a piece of property. And Michael said, sure, I'll do that. Well, anyway, now I see him outside, and he's weeding, and he's watering, and he's feeding birds, and he's playing with the animals who live here, and grand dog who lives here a lot. And the other day I had to do a run for big bags of bird seed, and I said, could you come with me and do the heavy lifting? He did. And it's just a total different feeling in the house, all from changing thinking, which is the result of wake-up sheets.
Well, my take would be, is it a different feeling in the house, or is it a different feeling inside of Susan's skin?
That's true.
Because the piece of work that I saw you do, go ahead.
Yeah. No, you're right. You can still say, that's okay.
Well, my take is the piece of work that you did around that whole thing that you were projecting onto Michael, you thought had to do with Michael, your brain's putting it in, your brain's image of him was really the unresolved piece of work that you hadn't done with your sister from early childhood. And once that's gone, that's what creates every time, my take is every time you interacted with Michael, that came into the picture and became part of your mind's construct. You resolved that, you forgave that, you removed that, and so what's gone now? That feeling that was created, how many decades ago, that's been going on whenever somebody triggered it, and so now a whole different creative possibility is there because there's no longer that projected block. Yeah. I mean, that's the fruit of the work.
It is.
I remember they said to Yeshua, how do you tell where somebody's at? He says, you look at their fruit. What are the results you're producing? And if you do a piece of work like that and you see the change in your results, that's like, there it is. That's what it's all about.
Yep. It's amazing how much energy is freed up and how many other issues can then, just what you say, your level of vitality is good enough now that you can handle things you couldn't deal with before. That's been happening. So, of course, other things have been presenting themselves, which need to be looked at.
You mean you've been getting more opportunities to learn forgiveness as a result? How cool is that?
Yeah, right. Okay. So,
well, remember the part that goes into resistance and is unwilling, says, okay, I did that one, so now I should be finished. Yeah. There's multiple times the benefit you're seeing out of that one piece of work when you handle all these other things that are going to surface. I mean, they're going to surface. They're there. The beauty, my invitation would be to create a different mindset around those things surfacing rather than being in resistance, because literally those energetic patterns that I'm in resistance to are stored somewhere in tissue and creating deterioration, things like weakness in a wrist. And, I'll offer the possibility that whatever's going on physiologically in any part of your form, and we'll use the wrist as an example, that perhaps there's an underlying issue that if you let it surface and process through it, your wrist will properly restructure itself with no interference whatsoever.
Now
the mind says, oh, come on. I mean, that piece is broken, it's missing, that can't happen. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, let me go back about 40 years ago. Let me go back about 40 years ago.
Okay.
Worked with a man in New York, and he had 2 Harrington rods in his spine. You familiar with a Harrington rod?
I think you've told this. Go ahead and tell it again. It's a great example.
Well, they're metal rod. I mean, they take I don't know what size, something like a 3/8 metal rod, and put it in the spine. And, somebody's spine is, terribly deformed or what have you, and they put these metal rods in. And this fellow went in, and he did some serious work. And it was a period of about 5 years, and he contacted me. We'd sort of lost touch, but he'd been continued doing his work, and he contacted me. He said, I had an X-ray done, and my Harrington rods are gone. Metal rods in his spine were gone. Yeah.
I don't remember this story. This is a different one.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Now, the mind would say that's absolutely ridiculous. And yes, if you believe in matter and you believe in all the things we've been taught to believe that are lies, that's a ridiculous thing. That can't happen. But if you realize that it's all energy and that there's an underlying power that creates the energy that we experience, and that given the proper level of energy, anything is transmutable. Anything can be changed. Of course, if we buy into a certain limit, then, of course, that limit's going to become our actuality. And humanity's bought into, I think, all kinds of limits that are just ridiculous. There's a case in Lourdes in France, with the miraculous waters in Lourdes, where there was a man who was medically diagnosed as having cancer in his hip, and he literally didn't have a hip left. His hip was gone. But he was a man of faith, and he knew if he could get in those waters at Lourdes, he would heal. And he was diagnosed in X-rays, and they put him in Lourdes, and he came out, and he had a hip.
Wow.
The pattern, remembering that the pattern that is behind everything that expresses in the creation is what is behind the expression. The expression isn't the reality. The expression is just an energetic appearance or expression of that pattern. When we degrade the pattern, we think that it's normal to have somebody who, they were young and healthy, and then they got older, and then they got cancer, and then their body fell apart and they died. We think that's just normal. But there's nothing, it's no different to believe that than to believe that we have somebody whose body is filled with cancer, and it reverses and becomes a healthy body again. There's no difference in those two principles. It's just which direction is the mind and the consciousness behind the tissue structure going. But they're the same thing. I mean, it's miraculous that somebody can have healthy tissue, blah, 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 and it becomes cancerous. Except we've been taught that's natural. It's not natural. It happens, but it's not natural. Yeah. And when we wake up to who we are, my offering is, there's a basic principle of the universe. One of the basic laws of the universe, and it sounds a little strange, is the perpetual transmutation of radiant energy. The energy radiates from the sun and it hits the plant, and the plant transmutes that into chlorophyll. And the chlorophyll, we eat it, and it literally, the only difference between a blood molecule in a human form and a chlorophyll molecule is at the center of it there's magnesium in one and there's iron in the other. So we take the chlorophyll in and we transmute that into blood cells. It's a blood cleanser, blood purifier. It's all about the transmutation of radiant energy. And the thing that humans haven't been taught is that we are the director. We're given permission to originate and become directors of that process. And if somebody else, like we stand in front of somebody with the white coat that says, that's going to turn into a terrible ABC condition, if we buy into that, then being a transmutator of radiant energy, we produce that result. If we refuse, then we don't produce that result, if we choose to do something different. And we've been taught all kinds of crazy things that appear to be limits and impossibilities that simply aren't. I once watched my son. He was about 5, and he cut his hand. And he'd been taught, normal, healthy, all his life, to brush the energy off that it had created, pain or an injury. And at about 5, I mean, I saw the cut on his hand, and he did a normal healthy, and I saw it heal. I watched it. So, trust in Allah and tie your camel. Get the best doctor you can who can help you with that. And in the meantime, who knows what transmutation you might engage in?
It's going to have to be something that I don't understand with my logical, conscious mind.
Yes. Yeah, we don't have to understand. In fact, trying to understand it, remember the number one pseudo-solution of the non-being mind is trying to figure it out. You can't figure it out. All you need to do is direct it, or all you need to do is forgive it. Now, if the directions that are in you that say, no, that can never happen, are bigger and stronger and a higher amplitude energy than the one that says, oh, I think maybe I'll try and do this, then, yeah, it's not going to happen. But the most profound and powerful resonating energy is what governs how the whole energy system is going to manifest. We were given at creation of humans, and we're the only creature that we know of that can do this, the ability to originate something totally and completely new, something that's never been seen in the creation. The wolf gets the intuitive hit that, oh, her den is in danger, there's going to be a flood, and she moves the den up the riverbank, and people watch and go, wow, look at that, she knew a flood was coming, and 2 days later there was a big rain and there was a flood and her puppies would have been dead. That's the limit of that animal. But you won't see the wolf that says, oh, there's a flood coming. I think I'm going to create some sandbags and put sand in them and create a dam and create a safe space so the water can rise and we'll be safe here. Not going to happen. But we were given that ability. And some people want to run it and limit it in us. It's been limited and disbelieved for centuries and eons and generations. So we know with our whole hearts this isn't possible. To me, the idea of the work is to take all the things that we know with our hearts is not possible and get rid of the ones that might not be true and replace them with possibility. What could I originate here? What energy could I bring into the creation that will restructure this? And what do I need to deal with if the disintegrative structure is based in a dis-ease energy? What do I need to deal with? What do I need to process, access, and pull out of the system and throw away so that the new possibility can become the predominant resonant energy and take over the creation process in my body or in my world?
That's what Louise Hay did, in a way. She would say, if you have weakness here, it might be because of this, and fix this, or put your mind to admitting that there's another possibility here. Like, I had trouble in that arm once, and I read that having trouble with your left arm had to do with taking on too many responsibilities. And I thought, well, any woman in our society could probably say, yeah, I have too many responsibilities, right?
Done more than needed. Men, too.
Men, too, yeah. There's too much. So,
each in our own way.
All right, what I can do is say, it is possible that this could heal on its own and that my hand is okay. Are those things I could say? I mean, I feel like in kindergarten, I need some words or something.
Well, for me, and you listen to Yeshua, who, if you go back to the creation story, the creation was spoke into existence. Yeshua says the power of life and death is in our words. So if I speak words of life over something, and there's a possibility, life is going to move forward and take over that possibility and express. If I speak words of death and destruction over it, then death and destruction is going to take over.
Well, I can understand that.
For instance, with Aria Rain, Jeannie's talked about the last few weeks. She introduced her just a few weeks ago to the concept of canceling a thought, and now Aria Rain is all about canceling she catches us when we say things. It's, oh, cancel that, Papa. Oh, yes, you're right, Aria.
That's good.
So, what have we been taught? What have we been told? What limits have we had put on? And, maybe some of them are real. Maybe I can't fly. I hold the possibility that one day I'll be able to overcome gravity and take off into space if I choose to. It doesn't mean I have to. It doesn't mean I can. But if I can hold the possibility, then if the possibility is a fact, then I'm going to be able to do it. So I look at the possibility that, well, maybe this plate in my hand is helpful or not at this point. So I'm willing to be guided as to what it is, and maybe I can energetically adapt to or adjust the plate to make my hand more whole and healthy. Or if necessary, maybe I can, transmute the energy of this plate so the destructive parts of it disappear from my body, literally disappear. Or maybe I take an easier route and I have the surgeon take it out. But I'm just hold the possibility. What if the possibility is that every morning when I wake up with the breath and realize that love is flowing through every cell of my structure and expresses in every relationship and every interaction that I have with every person that I have interaction with? What if I hold that as a possibility? Rather than, I came up with generations to believe that, there's going to be some trouble and there's going to be some trauma and there's going to be a struggle and, it's going to be tough, but it's going to be too many responsibilities and too much work and too hard. It's like, well, if I hold those words either unconsciously or speak them from my unconscious into existence, then there's where I'm going to end up living. Yeah. So for me, I would rather go, some people look at me and say, yeah, you're going to fly, right, Michael? Okay. I would rather err on the side of what are the possibilities than err on the side of limiting the possibilities. Sure. I doubt I'm going to be flying anytime soon, but I hold the space for it. But if I absolutely say with that or anything, well, I couldn't possibly do that, then now I know I can't, or I'm not likely to.
I'll keep an eye out.
For me,
head for Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
If you take off. Head for Pennsylvania. I'll keep an eye out.
Okay.
Wouldn't that be a sight? Airborne Michael Ryce.
There you go. Yeah, if I get up there, it'll probably be via airplane. It's anytime soon. It's not something I'm working on. I'm just taking an extreme example, I mean, the guy who literally went into the waters at Lourdes without a hip and came out of the waters, medically verified, coming out of the waters with a fully formed, perfect hip.
Wow.
What possibilities did he need to engage in?
Yeah.
And what limits? We don't have to get ridiculous. I don't have to say, I could get up on the top of that bridge and jump and fly. And I don't have to do something silly with it. But if I keep widening my horizons of possibilities, maybe I'll bump into an edge that I can't go past or that we're not designed to go past. And then, fine, I'll just, honor that edge. But until then, why put limits on our ability to originate something new in the creation?
Good thought. Just a good thought.
And when you take the words and then add the visual, there's another principle in the scriptures that talks about, for a lack of vision, my people have perished. So the other aspect of it is we have the ability to visualize, and there's a lot of research been done in the arena of cancer. I've got a television on in front of me, and it circulates pictures, and I've got a picture just came up on the screen of our intensive in 2019 with your sweet face and Tim and Ari and sitting in front of the stone bell tower.
Right.
Anyway, so let's open possibilities and honor anything we bump into that limits them. And if there are ways that, you have a top-notch surgeon that can assist you with this, great. What a gift.
Yeah.
Bring it all together.
It would. So I've had a couple of questions about Jacob. parent wrote me a long text and said, in fact, I should read it to you. He said,
okay.
I've been thinking about this a lot, and it would be wonderful if Bella, who is this young woman he lives with in his apartment, and that's a whole story. She's a woman, he says she's on the spectrum, but she gets him. And he doesn't like to be seen in public with her because she's overweight and not beautiful. I've seen pictures of her. She looks perfectly nice. She's heavy, but a lot of people are heavy these days. Anyway, she really gets him, and she doesn't mind the absolute squalor he lives in. She cat sits for him when he's away. She's a fellow student. She has made no plans for after she graduates, just the way he hasn't. And he often says things like, well, Bella's parents are onto her case, too, because she's not making any plans either. And so, there's that whole side. But anyway, I'll get back to the text. Bella and I could move into your house and live with Michael if you move into assisted living. I know that's a lot to ask, but it is doable, I think, and it would really help us to pursue our artistic lives. We could take care of both cats, too. And my first thought, of course, was, well, he wants to be subsidized totally, and, but I thought the only way to be with Jacob is to find a loving way to be with him. And I thought that was a cool idea. But he has no idea of how expensive it is to live in a place. This is not a cheap area of town. Our taxes are high, and there are a lot of steps in maintaining a house, and Michael is taking over a lot of that. Can I read you what I answered him? And maybe you might be able to find some glitches. I totally love the idea about the house, Jake. There are some serious challenges with doing this, though. First, Michael's status has changed. He is now an official member of the household. And in exchange, and this is in exchange for living free of charge, he is doing serious housework such as mowing, watering plantings in front and back, maintaining the vegetable garden, washing windows, filling big bird feeders that empty fast, shoveling in winter, helping with animals, and house sitting for both cats and dogs when we are away. He's willing to do errands such as get groceries. He's not getting any gigs, however, and I wonder if we are enabling him to not be the musician that he really is. I worry about his spirits, but that is beside the point. In addition to all the maintenance and upkeep of a house, you have the costs. Taxes are around $7,000 a year. Utilities around $200 a month. Wi-Fi and phone around $180 a month, and that's partly because Michael's here. Because Michael has taken on the chores, we feel no emergency for going to an old people's home. Plus, we still have 2 cats who are really not transferable. The cost of living at the old people's home amounts to about the same as what we would be spending here if we stayed here. We would not want to double our expenses to cover your living at this house. In other words, you would have to have a job of some sort, and I know you want to do that anyway. Luckily, we have another year to get some things figured out. I do think the idea of your living with Bella is wonderful, as you could have the companionship and share expenses. That's the kind of thinking we need to be doing. That's all I said.
Well, the only thought that comes to me to add to it is that perhaps a thought along the lines of, and I'm not ready to leave my home yet. I'm more in the vision that I'm, able to stay here.
Right. Yeah, well, I said it in maybe not directly enough, but with Michael here helping us, I said, Michael, you're our man now. We have a man. We have a man in the house helping with stuff. And he said, good, I'll help. And so I hope Jacob would get the picture that we're not in any rush to get out of here. And we have said to Michael, please keep your applications in for subsidized housing. we don't know what's going to happen to us, and we don't want to put you out on the street again. So if you get a living situation you can manage, you better take it. We're not, it's just that
promising something permanent. Right. Yeah.
Yeah, for himself, because he's 10 years younger than we are. And 10 years is a lot at this age. He has much more, he's stronger, and he's big, he can lift stuff. That's one thing about Jake. And did you want to say something? You made a grunt.
No.
Okay. You have signals. When Jeannie's reading, she'll say, what?
Yes.
It's because you went, whoa, or something. Anyway, the other thing is, kind of a miracle has happened, and I don't know what's going to happen when Jacob gets home, but a longtime friend of my daughter invited Jacob to go with him and his wife and his small children. It's a second marriage, and he has very young children, even though he's in his 50s. And invite Jacob to a place on the shore in Ontario for a week. Jacob was terrified. He's agoraphobic because of who he is, and also the pandemic helped with him staying isolated. He almost didn't go, and his mother said, you go, I'll pay for the plane, you go and get Bella to do the kitty. You're going to love it. And he dared to do it. And he's been posting pictures on Facebook. If you look up Jacob Moorhead, Moorehead, you'll see a picture of a skinny bearded guy with little children and with some adults around on the shore. They're the most joyful pictures of him catching fish.
Oh, that's
and he
sweet.
even wrote I know it, and he wrote a birthday song for one of the little girls who had a birthday, and it's on there. I'm sure he has his feelings about it because it was tossed off pretty fast. But in any case, he has seen something about what life could be like for him. But he hasn't, I don't think he's ever had that. And the result is twofold. He has seen that, and he's been so horrible to his mother. Weird thing happened. He texted his mother, but he texted me at the same time. And I don't think he meant to have two people receiving the text. You know how that can work? You put two addresses on. In any case, I was getting these private texts between him and his mother. And, of course, I was reading them, so I thought I was supposed to be getting them. And then it occurred to me, oh, my gosh, I shouldn't be reading these. He didn't mean for me to see these, but I got a glimpse of the same harshness that you saw. Really mean, nasty texts about how these parents up here on the shore are so good to their kids. They do this, they do that, and they do the other. You never did that for us. You were a terrible mother. You're a narcissist, and you should be ashamed. And going after her. And I'm reading this, and I'm texting her separately and saying, Kath, you are a wonderful mother. I saw you. I know what you did, and you were dealing with an abusive husband. Don't take this personally. She writes back, Mom, I get these all the time. This is nothing new. So here's this discrepancy here with this young man. And I'm just telling you, you might have a thought, but I have no thought. I just think, who are we going to get when we get him back to his apartment? Which Jacob is it going to be?
Well, my offering would be, seeing as how he made you privy to those texts, is maybe that's his unconscious way of it. He knows his mother's not going to confront him. Perhaps it's his unconscious way of inviting you to step up to the plate and hold him accountable.
Wow.
To really start to look at his behavior that he hides from you. He's shown it to you and pointed at you previously, and you seem to have worked through a lot of that with him. But just to let him know that you know what's going on, and he needs to wake up and start to be accountable. The kind of viciousness that he's putting on his mother is the viciousness he does. It's his projection. So perhaps
Absolutely.
you can open the space with him to start to see that it's his projection. It's like, maybe my thought would be, what I'd be tempted to do if I were in your shoes is I'd make a copy of that text and I'd put it in the body of an email or a text to him saying, you talk about all the things your mother's done. Son, take a look at what you're doing here to your mother.
Yeah.
Is it possible, maybe do some explanation of projection, is it possible that this is all your projection and it never happened? And maybe get him to start to question his own perception, because it sounds like he lives in a world of these constructs in his mind, and he thinks that the constructs in his mind are representative of what's actually happening in the world, and they are not, from what you're saying, rarely are they representative of what's happening in the world, but they are representative of what's happening inside of himself. And someday he's got to wake up. If his life is ever going to change, if he's not going to just live this whole scenario out his whole life, he's got to realize this is a construct of my mind based in my viciousness, and I project my viciousness onto everyone else. And from what I hear, I understand that he had a power person dad that had that kind of viciousness, but from what I've heard about your daughter, it's like she didn't sound like she has a vicious bone in her body.
No, she just...
Somewhere he's going to have to get a teacher that can take him into that understanding. Maybe you're it.
I see.
Maybe this is your next assignment.
Maybe. If I say it's projection, I think what I've got to do is, that's a heavy load for him to accept. It's like saying it isn't really true. What I might say is, do you realize you're beating up your mother the way you used to see your brother get beaten up? He didn't get beaten up. He hid, and he's still hiding. But he saw Luke get shredded on a regular basis, and Luke got bloodied so he would fight back. So if I could say, you're acting just like your dad, you really have to do it this way? If you're mad at your mom for not protecting you, amen, maybe she didn't. She was terrified, and she also was the head breadwinner and away from the house 12 hours a day, many days, as a priest of a cathedral. She couldn't be there the way regular mothers could, and your dad liked that. He wanted her to be the breadwinner, and she was. And she didn't even know what was going on in the house a lot of the time. And when she did, she was terrified of her husband anyway. Never stood up to him until she left.
So
I think I could say those things.
Structuring an interaction with him where he could build the brain cells to begin to suspect that might be true would probably be one of the biggest gifts he could get in his life.
Wow.
And it sounds like he'd opened the door for you to give it to him. And you've been doing the work to have the skill set to give it to him.
Yeah. All right. I never thought that the text would be useful in this way, but it's true. I got them. They are open season. Yeah. Oh. Okay,
and he may
Michael.
come up with, some kind of it was an accident, so we're not going to talk about that. And it's like, well, it may have been an accident, but the fact is you sent it to me, and we're going to talk about it. Because you need to become accountable for the kind of viciousness that you put out into the world. Son, you have a very vicious mouth. Do you get that? And you blame everybody else for their viciousness, and you expect them to be different, but you're not putting any effort into being any different yourself. Mm-hmm. So, at what point do we start to wake up and function as human beings? And, perhaps part of that conversation is to acknowledge him as love, recognizing who he is. And, there's been aberrant experiences, and there are aberrant behaviors, and there are generational patterns. Yes. And someday you got to wake up and become accountable.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
That's where I'd take it. And it could be the gift that changes a young man's life, turns it totally and completely around. Especially where, he's taken this vacation up on the shore with his family, and he's seen a different possibility than what his mind projects. Now, to realize that possibility, number one, could be his, and number two, maybe was his, but his projection prevented him from experiencing it.
Yeah. Okay. I've got my marching orders.
That'll be a big piece of work. That'll be a big piece of work to do with him, and it could be the gift of his life, of his whole, literally of his whole existence.
Well,
that kind of trolling of his mother is really pretty horrific.
It is. Yeah.
And I'm sure Mom had her faults and wasn't perfect, but, again, the sense I get of her is nothing like that has ever passed between her and her son. But he's projected it. He's experienced it passing between them, but because of his projection, not because of the actuality.
Yeah.
And, you've got a whole cadre of tools, and there's a point where he's going to have to take some tools on, or his whole life is going to be pretty darn miserable.
Yeah, that's true. That is so true. All right, Michael. Well, I've sort of gotten a huge amount out of you already again today.
Well, I hold the space for your guidance and any piece of work that you have to do. He being a descendant and having the same generational patterns that have come from you through your side of the family, it'll probably open up some new work for you to do, to have to work through within your own genes in order to get rid of projections that would inhibit you from doing that kind or having that kind of interaction with him. So it'll probably be a major gift to you as well.
I have to develop a spine because he's really scary when he gets like his dad, and I'm not as strong as I.
You said a good model. The other thought I have is that you make a deal with him to watch. We've got a relatively new 3-hour Why Is This Happening to Me Again? Make some kind of a deal with him to watch that, and to verify that he's actually watched it with some modicum of interaction with it. Ask him to write you an essay on it. Do a synopsis of Why Is This Happening to Me Again? It's a 3-hour video. If you haven't got the link, I'll be glad to send it to you. And, that will help him build some brain cells. And I don't know, maybe make a deal with him. There's something he wants. There's a gift you'll get him, or, bribe him or pay him for it. I want to pay you for 3 hours of your time. Or maybe that's not wise because that's been an issue in the past. And, or anyway, just a thought that because it's going to be difficult for him to hear some of these principles coming from you with the history he's had with you and the projection he's done with you. A lot of those projections, a lot like with his mom. So, coming in from a totally third-party place, that 3-hour Why workshop was pretty concise, and it came together, pretty powerfully. And anybody who's listening, if you want a copy of it, it's on our website. You can go to our YouTube channel and look at Why Is This Happening to Me Again? And it's there. It's a freebie.
All right, that's going to be a hard one to sell, but I'll, among the other things.
Well, maybe that's a thought, and of course you could enter it with that thought in mind, and it'll be hard. Or it could be, gee, that would be one of the nicest and easiest gifts I could possibly give him, and I bet he'd really appreciate it. Might create a different result.
Might, yeah. True.
Remember that one of your challenges is to bring new possibilities into a genetic structure that is hardened against some of those possibilities.
That is very true. Yeah.
And so the first place to crack through it is your own genetics, your own mindset of it, your own assumptions and presumptions. And, to me, this conversation is going to be such a gift to so many people, those who are listening and or those who listen in the future, because this kind of issue is so huge in our culture. It's just, and not necessarily, grandmother to grandson, but just family issues like this, that people's minds are just so blocked against seeing possibilities and assuming, because there was trauma, the trauma is always going to be there. And I would work from the point of view within myself of recognizing that all of the traumas that have gone down with Jacob, with Luke, are resolvable. And I'm guided and I know how to resolve them. In fact, that might be a good mind shifter to work with. How about a mind shifter?
All right.
Every family trauma, every family trauma that I have gone through and bought into in this family system is now resolvable.
Okay.
Through the acts of love that come from my being.
Okay. Wow. Michael, I just went up on YouTube, and there's a very young Michael Ryce with his hands very expressively in your mouth, pouting because you're saying something important, and it looks like 8 videos. You want him to listen to all those, right?
No, actually, there's one 3-hour video link called Why Is This Happening to Me Again?
Okay, I did that. Okay, wait a minute. Well, this
maybe
one's
the
52 minutes.
easiest, another way that you can find it, if you go to our website, I've put it under schedule, just so that it'd be another place where you could find it. If you go under schedule, there's one that says free 3-hour Why Is This Happening to Me Again?
Okay. Okay.
I think that 8-part thing might be something from A Course in Miracles. I'm not sure.
Well, it's entitled Why Is This Happening to Me Again? But various incarnations of Michael Ryce. It's fun to scroll down. See a young bearded skinny guy and an older guy with all sorts of gray hair and a Hawaiian shirt on, and you're
well, I do put gray in my hair now, so I look a little more sophisticated.
I understand. Yes. All right. Nice. Okay, thank you.
I look back at some of those videos at that skinny guy with the beard, and it's kind of funny.
It is funny. Well, we all have those, It's just that yours are right out there because you're spreading your word. You don't get to hide in some old family album. You're just right out there.
No. Yeah, some of those videos are over 40 years old, so been going on for a while. But the one that I'm talking about is one I did less than a year ago. So it's kind of one of the latest iterations of Why Is This Happening to Me Again. I think it's pretty concise and precise, and will lay some foundation brain cells for him if you can just get him to write you a report on it so you verify who's actually interacted with, and seriously, maybe invite him and his girlfriend to listen to it. And, I don't know what the incentive might be, but...
Yeah, you're just saying what I was asking us, what's the incentive? it is going to be some kind of monetary bribe thing. Nothing else. I mean, maybe it's a new guitar or, you know.
Well, my other thought would be rather than to make it a monetary bribe, because that's something that he's tried to force you to do previously, is I'd stay away from that. But it might be more of just a straight-up business deal. There's something I want you to understand, and I want to verify that you understand it. So I want to hire you to do this, to watch this and write a report on it for me. I'll literally give you a job of doing this. And then it's just a straight-up business deal. It's not the, well, Grandma, remember the last time you gave me money when I wanted to? No, it's just, this is maybe a way to do this to stay out of the mess where he tries to shame you into giving him more, would be just, here's something that I want from you, and I'm willing to pay you to do it. I'm willing to hire you to do this job that I want done. And what I want is a detailed report that shows that you understand this 3-hour video. That might be a lot cleaner than, you know, if you bribe him, then the next time he wants something from you, he's going to say, well, you know, we're back to that old game of trying to force you to pay him.
Right. I wonder, this is really asking too much for you to say, but I can picture him saying, okay, I want $5,000. Well, I don't want to do that much.
No.
But I have no idea how much.
Well, my thought would be you're doing something for his benefit, and, you know, if you're going to hire him to do a book report on a 3-hour video, I'd think, you know, I have a job I want you to do. I'm willing to pay you $100 for it. Would you be willing to do it? It'll probably take you maybe 5 or 6 hours. Yeah. 7 hours, $15 an hour. You know, I wouldn't leave it in his, how much do you want? I'd just say, here's a job I'm willing to offer you, and I'm willing to pay you for it. And you know, $100.
Okay. Excellent.
And if he wants the $100, then, you know, puts an extra $100 in his pocket and gives him maybe the gift of his life as you process through that with him.
Oh, yeah. Wow, great ideas. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'd make it clear that the job is to produce a book report. Is to produce a book report that reflects that you understand this. That's the job. By the way, the mind shift that I just gave you, I wasn't in a place where I could write it down. If you wouldn't mind, would you text it back to me? I want to use that.
Okay. And I'm going to say
it's
not much of a mind shift for me. It's very good, but I have no arguments against it. So it's more like an affirmation.
Cool. I join you in affirming it. Awesome.
All right. Okay.
All right. Well, I appreciate you and your willingness, the work you're doing, what you're confronting and moving through as a shining example for everybody. So thank you. Deep appreciation.
Thank you, too. You get a little momentum and you get the rewards, and then you're really off and running. So everybody out there, who's ever listening, do them. Shifts will happen, no matter how you're kicking and screaming. It will help. Okay.
That's the idea.
Okay.
All right, and then I could visualize perhaps. Yeah, I could visualize perhaps then picking out one of, let's say, maybe from the book study club where I did a video worksheet with somebody. So maybe the next job would be that he watches and produces, 10 worksheets that shows he understands the worksheet. That might be the next one in line.
All right.
So, because I think there are at least 5 or 6 different videos where we did, and they're anywhere from maybe an hour and a half to 2 hours where we walk somebody through detailed with questions and answers the whole worksheet process on video. Of course, we got lots of them on the radio show, but on video would be perhaps another step in the process of supporting him.
Excellent.
All right, young lady. Well, it's going to cut us off in just a few seconds. So, everybody, thank you for joining us. And thank you, Susan. We appreciate you. Blessings. Bye-bye.